just over at my folks' house inspecting a large mango tree that I'm currently top working for them to a couple of varieties, and I noticed a Davidson plum underneath the tree. So I actually made a video where I tried to remove a Davidson plum from underneath this tree probably a year ago now, and I failed dismally. This is obviously a favoured roost of a possum or a bird that obviously eats the fruit, because there is a tree over there. How does the fruit get here? Well, it gets here with a possum or a bird, obviously, and they leave the seeds here and they grow. And so I saw this tree here and I pulled back the leaf litter and look what I found. It's actually many little seedlings. And they fought through those leaves and got all tangled up in themselves. So there's, if I count the actual trunks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seedlings there. I have had some friends ask for some Davidson plum, so I'm going to dig these up, pot them up, and give them away. And I'm going to keep one for myself for my property. Davidson plum, if you ever had it, is very sour. It's not something I would eat on the regular, but as an ingredient to make jams and things like that, when you add basically a ton of sugar, hint hint, if it's super sour, sugar fixes everything, add a bunch of sugar. But as an ingredient for those sorts of things and in cooking, it is a worthwhile tree, and they take up hardly any space. If you've never seen a mature one, I'll take you over and show you the mother tree now before I pot these up. So this is the mother tree just here. And as you can see, it's quite tall, but it's also very narrow. They don't take up a bunch of space. So it's a tree that I can fit in. If you've seen my property tour, it's a tree that I can fit between my other trees without really impeding on the fruiting trees, especially those rainforest fruiting trees like the jackfruit, etc., that don't need full sun on all sides. This could easily slip in beside them. I wouldn't put it between lychees and longans because it will shade out part of the tree, and we know those trees need sun on all sides for fruiting. But things like the jaboticaba, jackfruit, black sapote, I think they'd perform very well even with one of these between them. So that's where I'll plant the seedling I take, or the seedling I keep. You can see even this tree's several years old, and it's got a decent trunk, but it's not a massive tree. It was flowering recently. I'll see if there's any. That's what Davidson plum flowers look like, and they're cauliflorous, or they flower and fruit from the trunk, similar to jackfruit but on a much smaller scale. Oh, I guess similar to a jaboticaba, but you can see they're not all the way up the trunk. They are still near the end. So that's the Davidson plum. Let's go dig up these seedlings. I wasn't planning this video, and I don't have a tripod or any way to really set up my phone as a camera, so I'm going to switch off while I do this. But basically I'm going to be digging down wide and deep. That's why I've got a post hole shovel. I actually kind of like it for this sort of job. Reason being, last time I severed the taproot. Being sand at my folks' house, roots tend to go very deep very quickly, much more quickly than they do in my clayey loam sort of soil. So I'm going to try not to do that this time. Let's see how we go. See you back here in a moment. Well, some success and some failures. When I dug down, it looks like this is actually resprouted from that seedling that I cut too shallowly on last time. You can see all these seedlings have grown up from that same rootstock. I went as deep as I could and I still didn't get deep enough, so that taproot must have gone really deep. Some of the sections, like this one, have no roots on them. You can see where it's come off, obviously that rootstock deep underground. That's useless to us. But interestingly, some of these other seedlings have roots on them. They've basically air layered themselves as they're growing up through the sand. And it's worth a shot. I'm going to pot these up because maybe these roots are enough to sustain these seedlings. I'll give it a go, keep them in the shade. Maybe some of them will survive. Out of that clump, I found 3 seedlings, or I should really call them air layers, shouldn't I, that seem to have enough roots to perhaps survive. So I'm going to pot up these 3, and I'm just going to put them in one pot. no point wasting that many resources if they're all going to cark it. So I'll put them in one pot for now, and I can separate them later if they survive. And there we go, 3 potted Davidson Plum air layers. And here we are quite a few hours later, later in the day, and we've been through the hottest part of the day, and although droopy, and some droopier than others, they're still standing. They haven't completely collapsed, which suggests to me that perhaps there's enough root there to keep these guys alive, or at least the better 2. One's looking pretty bad, but the better 2 alive. I'll put this video out now, and I'll do an update on this in a future video. It'll just be tacked on the end of one of my future videos. So if you want to know how these are going, make sure you subscribe and watch future videos. I'll also put a comment down below. It'll be the pinned comment with the results of this, how these 3 went. So if you're curious and it's been, a couple of weeks, look at the first comment and you'll be able to see how they went. All right, thanks for watching. If you're into this kind of thing, consider subscribing. And if you found this video interesting or useful, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.